podcast for August 7th, 2018.
All right.
We're recording.
All right.
And we are live.
Welcome to the CrackBerry podcast for August 7th, 2018.
Hey, everybody. CrackBerry Kevin here with a real special edition show today. I think they're all special, but this one's maybe extra special because, well, one, we're missing Adam's Ice. We love him, but we're missing him. But that's not why it's special. It's special because we replaced him with two amazing people coming back for his second appearance back-to-back from Android Central, the cowboy, Jerry Hildebrand.
Howdy.
We've got so much to talk about. I know you took the phone ring challenge. I want to hear all about it. And I think for the first time ever on a CrackBerry podcast, is that right?
I believe so.
I believe so. You are hearing the voice of Mr. Microsoft, now the biggest BlackBerry flexer of all time.
Yeah.
Dino.
Welcome. Gotta be here.
So I was shocked. I was strolling through Instagram on the toilet one morning because that's always when I use Instagram. And I came across a post by Daniel Rubino where he had a BlackBerry Key 2 kind of decked out with like a Microsoft theme icon pack. And I was like, what? And he was kind of singing the Key 2's praises a little bit. And then I messaged him and he's like oddly fascinated and enjoying the device. And he's got a lot of things to share. And there's very few people whose opinions I respect as much as Dan Rubino. So I'm like, well, Dan, you got to come on our next podcast then. And he, now I have the two people I think I respect the most. If Mr. Mobile was on the show, I would say him as well. But since he's not here, you two beat him. And I'm very lucky to have you guys here today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think my use case is unique only because I'm not part of the BlackBerry family, meaning I have a Priv somewhere. I don't remember the name of it. It was one of the last BB10 devices, with the classic square screens. It wasn't the Passport or anything. It was
Q10.
Square existed, so I didn't. They didn't sway me over. Obviously, 2018 things are different. I'm open now to Android devices, and yeah, I picked this one up to kind of give it a shot. So. It says something too, because I also do have a Pixel 2, I have a OnePlus 5, a OnePlus 6. So I have other devices at my...
So you get around. You are
I do get around. And for some reason, yeah. Well, it's not for some reason. I know why I like the Key 2. But yeah, as I described to you, it's an irrational attraction with...
That's what I wanted. An irrational attraction. What?
Yes.
I read a lot of tech bloggers. I watch a lot of tech YouTubers. Typically I hear, it feels good in the hand. But I've never heard of irrational attraction. So you got to let's just go into the Daniel Rubino story here of the Key 2 before we get to the update from Jerry on adventures in thinking.
So I say irrational attraction because there are negatives to this device, right? It's priced a little bit high compared to, like, for instance, I consider the best affordable flagship device right now, the OnePlus 6. Like, I just like everything about this device, the pricing, everything. The Key 2, though, stands out from the crowd, obviously, with its design and the front-facing keyboard, right? This is what people are attracted to. It's superficially, it's a very handsome-looking device. I've had a lot of people just see it and be like, ooh, what's that? Or, of course, the old BlackBerry still around, but there's an immediate attraction to the device that people have. And I think part of that's because smartphones have become so ubiquitous, but also kind of boring. I mean that in a good sense. It's just like my refrigerator is boring, even though it's technically a miracle of technology. We just take for granted things that have been around for a while. And right now, the current, thing with smartphones is, okay, the LCD screen is slightly better. It's a little bit faster. But for the most part, these are devices that people are can stick with for 2 to 3 years now and don't feel compelled to upgrade every year. In that sense, it's really interesting to see the Key 2 come out at this time, because I think it's actually kind of an interesting time. Everybody's doing bezel-less, and they all kind of look the same. The OnePlus 6, as cool as it is, kind of looks a lot like an iPhone 10. And so the Key 2 stands out from the crowd from that. And you can't really recommend this device to others in terms of like, oh, you want the best performance, you want the best camera, you want the best speakers. The Key 2 is none of that. And yet I still choose to use it kind of as my main device because of other reasons. One, the keyboard. Obviously, I do like the physical keyboard. And there's been a lot of controversy, I think, around this keyboard in the sense of like, well, people are, oh, can you type faster with it? And I don't think so. Like, I don't think I can actually type faster. I can definitely 100% though say I type more accurate with it. And this is still just a pain point for me with soft keyboards, no matter what the device, where I do the thing where I quickly respond to a message. I'll be walking and I just bang out, like a sentence. And I look up and it's like one long string of letters with a red is very, enjoy it though. It's like out of the box, you're typing right away. It's the little like, where's the period? How do I capitalize? How do I do a dollar sign kind of thing? And those are the little, things you got to do for tricks, and you'll figure out for mental memory.
Did you turn on predictive emoji?
No, I don't know how to do
I knew it's off by default. So you have to go into your keyboard settings. Okay. And then as you type words, like, I don't know,
that sounds
fire or hot, it just shows up as a suggestion.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You can tap them into the flow.
See that, but if a couple hours. And so, for that perspective, I also like, so the OnePlus 6, again, beautiful device. I think the price is right and everything like that. The problem with it is the glass, because it's near bezel-less and everything like that. It's very kind of heavy. It feels like an iPhone now. When I put it in my pocket, it feels like that boat anchor. It's like, oh, I have a phone now in my pocket. And this actually really,
I like a brick, like I want to feel it in my pocket. But
yeah, I don't.
I value your opinion. I'm not saying you're wrong. It's interesting to hear that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Too much glass is just like, I mean, I get it, right? Near bezel-less gives you a nice viewing experience. And this is always the trade-off. When you're using it, it's really beautiful. But when you're not using it, it sucks. But this is good enough. Also, the camera is a potato. I don't really, but
wait, define potato.
I mean, it's funny because 2 or 3 years ago, this camera would have been considered to be towards the higher ends, or at least photos. I'm not really into that as much. It does the job when I need it to. But I'm not quite, and that's just me. I'm not saying everybody should be like that, or about people need to change. But I also understand they didn't put a better camera in this because they didn't want to. A lot of resources and hired a lot of people. The fact is, doing imaging is still extremely.
They flew me to Korea, and I went to their headquarters, and I sat with their entire camera team, and I told them how we all actually review cameras, which was not by doing anything scientific. And after that, every camera was good. So I take full credit now.
Yeah. But I mean, I think for a certain segment of people, including myself, the software is cool. I do appreciate also the security stuff. I like the privacy shade. I think is really nifty.
I was just about to ask you if you're using, so you actually, the 3-finger gesture to pull it up and down, put it away, both. That's cool. Like, I like that it's integrated like that.
Yeah, I mean, these are the sort of differentiators that I think speaks to BlackBerry's strengths. The detect security thing is also really neat. I think almost Android devices should have that by default, just to let you know, hey, these are sort of flaws in your game on the phone for security perspective. I like the idea of when I take a photo, if I use the space bar, it sends it to the vault, as opposed to, because we all have that issue now. The cloud stuff has gotten so good. You take a photo, it's instantly uploaded to the cloud. And yeah, you sort of the social and browsing more message. It's still messaging for me, right? Work. I don't need the in-between device, which a lot of people do have, which is sort of like a large screen phone that serves as a tablet too. So
I feel, and it was coming out in your last, I feel like Dan's always preaches the word, and it's like the sermons come out of him. It's a beautiful thing to behold. But you were coming back into a little bit Microsoft, Dan, there. And I know for years you've often talked about like the marriage of like, why doesn't Microsoft buy BlackBerry, or why don't they partner on stuff? And I feel like listening to you talk about the Key 2 and use some of your Microsoft lingo coming through, I sense that that's kind of your take on it. It's like, why, this is a Microsoft type phone, even though it's built by BlackBerry, just the way it combines together in your ecosystem and life.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft's whole thing is about empowering users to do more, right? That's sort of their catchphrase. It's about productivity. It's about security. Obviously, they're not quite, as open and flagrant as Google, but they're not as locked down and crazy as Apple. They've always fallen in between there, giving users the options. And I think they do align well with BlackBerry in terms of that's what BlackBerry does too. This phone's about security, it's about productivity. It's, you know, it's sort of the adult phone.
On the keyboard, you're like, woo.
A lot of the Microsoft services are built onto this. So I use that Word and Office and stuff like that. I don't quite get why Microsoft and BlackBerry haven't teamed up a little bit more on this for cross promotion. Obviously, Microsoft doesn't have a phone right now. We don't expect them to have a traditional phone anytime soon. They're moving towards this next device category situation. But for now, this aligns nicely with the whole productivity PC thing. Yeah, I would love to see BlackBerry and sort of Microsoft kind of get together. Microsoft has worked with Samsung in the past. It was kind of a lame deal where they would just preload Microsoft stuff on there, but I don't see a reason why.
I feel like listening to this, I don't understand. Like, they should sell the Key 2 at Microsoft stores, if nothing else, because BlackBerry doesn't have a ton of retail presence right now.
Yep.
You know, Microsoft has it. You know, like, stick the phone there because it feels like such like not an overlap, but like a complement in audience, right?
Right.
They could put a video screen of Dan Rubino talking about the Key 2 from this podcast, and they'll just like fly off the shelves.
Totally. And before people react to Kevin's assertion there about putting these in Microsoft stores do sell Razer phones. They have sold Samsung Galaxy phones.
Yeah. So this
isn't like some weird, bizarre idea. They have done this in the past. You can get the Samsung phone, and then a tech would basically flash on Microsoft's software for you. That was sort of the partnership. They do that with the BlackBerry services. I think a lot of people would get value out of that. So,
big time.
Very
interesting. I feel like it makes total sense. I mean, why aren't you the CEO, Dan?
And you just put Office on this thing, right?
Well,
Skype.
And that's exactly what I thought. Most people who would want a BlackBerry use Microsoft Office every day.
Right.
Yeah, totally.
So.
Yep. Yeah. Skype on there. They could even do the Skyped tune camera thing. Like, there's a lot. And you get the security thing, the privacy thing that BlackBerry is a part of. Like, yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's one of those obvious things, and for some reason, those two companies don't work together. So
I have one question, because you mentioned price as one of your first sort of like, it's a little more expensive than you'd want, so you're taking like a value mindset. And it's funny, I put up a video today on the CrackBerry YouTube channel, and it was, you know, what I'd like to see in the Key 3. So I listed a few of the obvious features, right? I'd love to see maybe an OLED screen, and again, a camera that nobody ever complains about. They're like, yeah, it's a great camera. I never ever wanted to see one review or complaint saying, it's not good enough. You know, maybe wireless charging, make it waterproof, those kinds of things. But the one thing I didn't talk about was price, because to me, I'm like, well, I just want the best BlackBerry, and I'm going to pay whatever for it.
Mm-hmm.
But how much do you think that price sensitivity matters? Like, when you talk about that person in the Microsoft realm who's using the ThinkPad, right? And they're Mr. Worker or Mrs. Worker. Do you think price is that factor, or do they just want the best stuff for getting the job done? Like, or does BlackBerry have to like deliver it all at a cheap price to get away with it these days, or make it happen?
That is a really good question, tough to answer. We obviously have that same debate with Surface products, which are never priced to be. In Surface Go, people are complaining it's too expensive, which I'm like, yeah, but comparatively speaking, it's actually not. But it's true, right? There is always, the thing is, I think they can get away a little bit with a higher price because there's simply nothing like this else on the market. Like I said, there's an interesting timing for this device, which is, I feel like the market is sort of saturated with the very sameness devices. Jerry could probably speak to this a little bit more about how, I'm not sure. I'd be surprised next year if LG, HTC, Motorola are all still releasing tons of devices. I feel like the herd's going to start to thin. Unfortunately, are all still releasing tons of devices. I feel like the herd's going to start to thin. Unfortunately, Samsung is just dominating, you know, a lot of that high-end stuff. You have a lot of Chinese manufacturers with Huawei and Xiaomi on the low end. We're just doing a really good job. OnePlus is there too. And then there's that middle stuff where everybody's fighting over, no one's really doing well in.
Right.
And I feel like that market's going to kind of thin out. But then you have BlackBerry, which kind of really still stands out from the herd. And that actually speaks to their favor now. There is a lot of interest in this phone because of that nostalgia stuff going on. But there's an argument there that they could take a little bit further with the security and, you know, productivity.
Yeah, see, my thing is, I always get scared when people use the word nostalgia because it makes it seem more novelty. It's like, yeah, that's fun and cool. And I don't think, you know, again, that's not what you're buying into when you buy a key too, right? Like obviously you need to see the value in the, and enough so you're willing to put in a few days to get used to it again. Because I think much of the world moved on to touchscreens, and you know, even when I picked up the Key One last year, you know, it was several years since I'd been typing on a keyboard. It took me, you know, I think I've said on this podcast before, probably like 4 days to get used to it, maybe a week to like it, and probably 2 to 3 weeks to really love it again. And I'm like, that's a commitment, you know. Like I think a lot of people might use it for a day and take it back, or never walk out of the store if they don't give it that proper chance. So I think that's one of the challenges in education that continues. But the more people who buy it and you see it out there again in public being used, and people like you liking the phone, like being out there saying, man, this thing is good, this fits me, even if it's an irrational attraction. That's awesome, right? But when we talk nostalgia, I always get like petrified of that word. So I'm like, well, that sounds small to me, right? It doesn't sound like
it is interesting how old ideas come back, though, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like there is this concept right now. I'm supposedly working on a new pocket PC. Basically, it fits in your pocket, but it'll be a Surface, but fits in your pocket, right? But the concept of a pocket PC has been around for forever. So,
like touchscreens are better, but I'm like, that's not how things went down. Like what happened where keyboards were popular, BlackBerry didn't keep up on the app game. And nobody else even tried to make keyboards, because anytime they did, they failed. You know, Samsung tried it, others tried it. BlackBerry just became synonymous with the keyboard, smartphone. But it wasn't that people started hating on the keyboard. It was that people started hating on the lack of apps, and therefore moved on, right? And
although shout out to Palm and the Trio, that was my first keyboard.
There you go, welcome. So now to see it again, it's like people are like, well, you know, the keyboards went away because they weren't as good. It's like, no, like the keyboard itself was never a problem. Like you see people on laptops using a keyboard. I saw your video of the Surface Go compared to the iPad with a keyboard like a keyboard accessory on it.
Sure.
I go into Starbucks all the time. I see touchscreen iPads with a keyboard accessory. Like the concept of a keyboard is not a thing. It just in mobile or in smartphones, it kind of went away. Again, because BlackBerry flopped it on the app front.
And I think it's a really interesting thing, because I think the consensus from a lot of people who are into smartphones and its technology is the pendulum swung radically too far the other way, because we went from just keyboard devices to even I made fun of the iPhone when it came out. I called it the black slab, and then and for a little while we had a mix of devices. There were still Trios around. There were still a few BlackBerries around. There were definitely Windows mobile devices around. And then that all kind of went away. And then it just swung, right? And now it's just full screen devices. Now it's to do with the consumers. I also think as the media changed, in other words, in devices, they had keyboards, and there was this sort of mix. But I think there's room for this. And we'll see it in PCs too, right? Now, PCs are starting to go to the way where this year we're going to start to see devices that are dual screen mini laptops and full laptops that get rid of the keyboard. Those aren't going to be for everybody. If you're like, oh, I need to write 3,000 words a day, that's not your device. If you're a creator or someone using a PC for a different tool set, those may be your
one. The Key 2, they made the BlackBerry Motion, which was all touch. I think we have some show to go through here today about how in India, Optimus, who's licensed BlackBerry brand for that market, has the new BlackBerry Evolve coming out, which is a pretty good looking all touch BlackBerry. It looks like it's got, the right DNA in it. What's your thoughts of BlackBerry and those sort of brand strengths you spoke about earlier in a full touch? Do you feel like they can do that, or do you feel like they have to always have a keyboard or it's not a BlackBerry?
Yeah,
I'm putting you on the spot here. Like I know it's interesting.
Yeah. Now, I think one, before, as I mentioned, is the productivity and security stuff. That's a real differentiator with them, because Android has really improved over the last few years. I still cringe when kind of go their own route. If they teamed up with Microsoft again, I think that's, come pre-install with Office and make this a productivity type device. I feel like that's an interesting angle, because no one else is really doing that. So there's definitely it's more useful, more like a PC. iPad.
Samsung even has their own copy of the BlackBerry Hub. It's not as robust as what the BlackBerry Hub is, but they still have it and it exists, and people have opted to use it at certain points. So
yep,
I mean, what you're saying is totally on point with the competition level there, right?
Yeah, everybody's trying to make their iPad is trying to add keyboards to it, because they're trying to make more useful because everybody has an iPhone now for, and aren't buying iPads because they're big enough, right? So what you do is you either get rid of the iPad or you make the iPad more powerful, more like a PC. And so you're seeing this upshift of technology. Samsung's trying to do the same thing. Android tablets not doing well. So how do you do it? Well, you make the Galaxy Note and then you make that a more powerful device. And, so everybody's trying to make their PC or their phone more PC-like. And then
planet Earth, it's mobile only. Yeah. So having that one device, whether it's a smartphone with a giant screen, that is the best fit for them. That's it, right? People just want one thing. That's what they can afford. That's what's most convenient for them in their life. So it makes sense that we're kind of coming back. But then I also think that's what creates the room for something like BlackBerry that's very purpose built. It's probably, it's kind of making the assumption you have other gadgets in your life that fill other niches too. But for that, being productive on the go serves a really good, strong function for people who value that. So
I'd also say finally just that the numbers are there for them in the sense that
Peak was like top 15 brands on the planet Earth, right? In terms of recognition and brand value. And obviously it took a step backwards from that. So there's an expectation that if you say the word BlackBerry, it's got to be everywhere, right? It's got to be on billboards. It's got to be sponsoring the Super Bowl. It's got to be doing all those things. And I think in this current way they're working with licensee partners, I think you're right. Their business plans, their economics don't need to sell tens of millions of phones for the phone to be a success. They probably just need to, step one, not lose their shirts on it, right? Not lose at the farm doing it. And then from there, they just need to make money. It's not the old BlackBerry where it's like, okay, publicly, quarterly statements, report your numbers. Oh, the market, stock market either rewards you or burns you at the stake. They don't have to do that anymore from what I seem to see as I look around at numbers, right? They can put them out there. And I saw earlier this year around Mobile World Congress, some reports came out sort of talking about how many BlackBerries, they were guessing. I don't think there was ever a statement, but some of the tech media was jumping on it like, oh, they're not selling enough, they're doomed. And I'm like, you're not actually thinking about this at all, right? And I think you just validated that point where it's, they need to be a strong enough niche and, they have to make money doing it or they won't be able to, but the numbers they need to succeed or to sell probably are not the same as what, it would have been with the old BlackBerry Limited launching this thing as a publicly traded company where their primary business was phones and only phones.
Yep.
So I think that's interesting to keep in mind. I think the challenge you do run into with niche products that are a product like a smartphone though is, and I'm curious to ask both, Dan and Jerry, this question, you too, Blaze, is if you find yourself having to defend the product, because I think even though you have a niche product, smartphones are such a mainstream topic. People talk about them at dinner all the time, that kind of thing, that everybody kind of knows something about it. And it's like, well, why are you using that phone? Like, why aren't keyboards dead? Aren't BlackBerries dead? And then, so you get why it's a good phone, but now you have to keep re-educating people on those things because they have opinions otherwise. And I think that makes it probably harder for a company like BlackBerry, because even though they maybe are going after a niche, they still ideally need to tell the whole world that the niche exists, because a lot of people they're not thinking that way.
But maybe they don't want everybody to try a BlackBerry. Maybe it's more important for the people who are interested and are going to like it to be able to wait a week and buy one because, they're not sitting on every shelf, than it is to try to get everyone to try one. And then you've got 80% of the people online saying they hate it.
Yeah, you end up disappointed because you were sold on a product that wasn't really meant for you to begin with.
It's true. It's about the right people getting it in their hands. Yeah. Good point. As my BlackBerry Key 2 sends me a notification, which I can't ignore in case it's my wife.
Yeah, it's definitely I haven't felt like I had to defend the Key 2 so much. It's just the at first, they still exist kind of thing. But then a lot of people, they still have fond memories of it. And so there's a more positive interest in it in that sense of wait, those things are still around. Oh, I kind of remember that. Let me try it. But yeah, I think this is where BlackBerry always went off the rails, was when they tried to make their devices mass consumer. They tried to chase that dragon, right? Yeah. And that was, it was almost understandable. I mean, Apple was going, having success with the iPhone, and they're the real first company to be like, hitting that consumer market, not just business people or tech nerds. And so you could see them, switching over to that and trying to go for it. But that's where they start to lose their mojo. Microsoft had the same issue where they try to go a little more too consumer on a lot of their products. And now you see them falling back to their strengths, productivity, security, and all this kind of stuff. And it's actually working out for them. And I think that's still where BlackBerry can leverage it. And almost because of Verizon, right? What was that?
They demanded phones.
Yeah.
The pearl in that was kind of like, hey, BlackBerry, we have this carrier capacity. We don't have a lot of products to sell. Can you do something for us that would appeal to more people than all the business stuff you've been doing? So they built devices like the Curve also that really got picked up by every carrier in the US at the time.
Right.
But they didn't yet know how to market to those people. They didn't revamp the company to be like we're going to focus on the needs of consumers and user experience and branding and da-da-da. They just did their playbook of enterprise, and then they started shipping devices to consumers. And I think, a lot of that is what caught up with them, because even in their product development cycles and everything else, they weren't thinking consumer first. They were just thinking, we're BlackBerry, this is what we do. And they became almost like victims of their own success. Yep. And they didn't build for that, versus an Apple that's, through its history has always been consumer. And, that operational playbook they had buttoned up, super tight.
They were trying to sell an enterprise message to consumers, and it didn't work that way.
Yeah, well, they tried to change, but they didn't have that.
Well, they didn't know how to change at that point.
There's so many things. I don't like to pick on the founder of the company there, but Mike Lazaridis, there's so many quotes of things he said over the years. I will never put a camera on a phone. Why do you need a media player on a smartphone?
The networks will collapse.
Why do you need instant messaging like BBM on a smartphone? You have push email for that, and then you have WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and everything else today, right?
Got to have more consumer-friendly Blackberries. What was the one from Verizon, the big one with the touch?
Storm.
For me, that was the doing, and I smoke the pot, and that's what that phone reminds me of. And it was just oh, come on.
To me, that phone signals the downfall of the time. That's all absolutely. It stands out to me as. But there's some people who live and die by that phone. They're like, the Storm was the best phone, and I hate you for saying it sucked. Sorry, man, it sucked. It was terrible.
I ran out of guitar picks because of the Storm.
Which can happen. And also the feel, the key to, and then of course I professed my irrational attraction for phone rings, these beautiful things that go in the back of a phone, which just are such a phone. Just come with one of these on the back, built-in, integrated. So Jerry was so sold by the sales pitch, he got himself more than one, right? You bought a couple different.
Oh, yeah, I bought 3 or 4 different ones, and Michelle sent me a bunch.
Oh, fantastic! So
I need to get onto this mailing list.
You just have to.
Michelle sent him a stack like that high.
So what?
It really works out. I learned that I'm sorry, other manufacturers. Spigen makes the best phone rings by far. I really like their new pop ones. The ones, I think they're sold out everywhere. I'm sorry, but
what's funny is I like the original Spigen ring better than the new one.
I like my hand better, but I like the pop because it's flat.
Right, of course.
The pop, this one, right, Jerry?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And I used a bunch of them, and I settled on really good on the back of my key too.
Yeah,
and
sharp.
It's I don't know. I can hold my phone, and my thumb is free to do whatever I want. Wanted to think that it was getting better, and maybe it was my errors went away, and software errors were still there, but I really like it. And I sold my wife on one, and her boss now wants one.
That's amazing. That's what happens. The vicious, the gratuitous circle of phone rings. Yeah, people see them, and it's all like word of mouth. People get it. What's funny, and that's amazing. I knew you would love it, so I'm glad you're right now. What's really funny is in all my years, I've never really had a double typing issue. And even after that last podcast, I did not. But then I key twos because, well, if you go to the CrackBerry YouTube channel today, you'll see that in one of the videos, I threw one about, 20 off the second floor into the air.
Off a balcony.
And it survived no problem. And with whatever software version that one was running, holy smokes, all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, I had a double typing like a lot of double types happening on the key too. And I'm like, Jerry cursed me. This is what happened. I didn't actually think it could be a software thing, but that version I was running before did not have that issue. It was one of the ones I think that I had in New York. It might have been a review unit or something like that even. So somewhere along the line, an issue crept in. I thought it was me getting cursed by Jerry, and then an update came out which basically eliminated it. So I don't know. I basically blamed you for ruining my typing. Well, going back through the years, I'm like, oh, I get it, because I've always kind of dismissed it as like, no, people are just, a little Steve Jobs holding it wrong. It's like, no, you're typing wrong.
I understand you've got so many tiny intricate parts, and underneath the keys, you've got all these little circuits, and then you have software to try to control it all. You can get bugs in there. I get it. But that doesn't matter when I can't type a damn word and it keeps making the T come up twice, no matter how many times I push it. So I'm glad to see that it's gone for me. The fix or the phone ring or a combination of both, it's gone. I can type like I used to type on my keyboard.
Rubino's like, I'm gonna get a phone ring now. He's like laughing, but he's
totally should try one.
He's already messaged Michelle. Give me a stack of those phone rings.
It's got this amazing ring on the back. Nah, I
don't get it done.
Okay, Blaze. Jerry.
Thanks. I'm afraid to read YouTube comments, so thanks.
No, they loved you. Everybody loved you. And I'm sure, Rubino, you're going to get too. So you guys are welcome back anytime. I already know what the comments are going to be. They're going to say, wow, this is the least Kevin's ever talked on a podcast, because they had Rubino on, who's...
I just want to circle back and go towards like what you were saying about the Evolve and the Evolve X and the whole touchscreen market. We asked Dan about it, but what's Jerry's thoughts on that in terms of like BlackBerry releasing all touch devices? Do you think there's a market for them out there, or what's the scenario?
That's a tough call, because in Dan's pocket is a OnePlus 6, and you've got to make a that good or better and that cheap, or you're not going to succeed. I'm sorry, you're just not.
Yeah.
And that's tough to do. OnePlus can do it because their parent company is Oppo, which is, God, if it's electronic, Oppo makes one, and they're really good at and not spending a lot of money to make them.
I feel like I watched their last keynote, OnePlus, like from start to finish, and all their storytelling and videos beforehand. That's a story that they don't really ever put out there, right? Like that's not their story. Well, no. It felt like OnePlus is OnePlus, and here's our offices and our support teams, and
they're a separate company, but they're under the umbrella.
Got it. So when it comes to manufacturing the device, it's happening in an Oppo factory, and is it Shenzhen or someplace, or is it?
I'm pretty sure they're made in Shenzhen, but I don't know if it's an Oppo factory per se, but I know Oppo is in the money chain somewhere, so that helps. And a touch. Let's face it, if you want to make a touchscreen phone and say my touchscreen phone is great, it's got to be good because the iPhone exists. And we know what a great touchscreen phone is like. We all have used an iPhone or know somebody who has, and it's a great phone whether you like Apple or not. So if you release a mediocre product and then try to claim it's great or try to charge too much for it, you're not going to succeed. If you spend the money to release a really great phone, you're competing against $1,000 iPhones and Samsung Galaxies. It's tough. I see LG had to scale back. HTC, I would be surprised if they make more than one more phone. It's just sad to see everybody disappear under Samsung's heel. And you can't fault Samsung for being successful. It's other companies weren't able to be as successful.
Yeah.
Got it. And those companies don't have that kind of niche the way we sort of talked about maybe BlackBerry being able to carve out in their space.
Now, I'm sure there are a lot of people who BlackBerry for the software BlackBerry provides and offers. Some of it you can get on other phones. You don't get. I've tried all of the BlackBerry apps you can get on a Galaxy phone, and it's close to the same experience, but it's not the same. It has tighter integration from BlackBerry itself. I think it's hub services is what you can't get, for the Galaxy. There are people who are going to want that, and maybe they want a touchscreen phone, and the Motion or the Evolve or Evolve X. That's for them, and that's great that BlackBerry can make it. I just don't see them selling 20 million of them.
Yeah.
Roger that.
Well,
you guys are so smart. Oh my god! I just want to listen to. I think there should be like a Rubino and Jerry podcast. Daniel's in the Mobile Nations family, though. It's confusing.
It's not. Yeah, it's not.
So I'm like, it's Rubino, it's Bader. I just go by last names now.
When Daniel first started, I used to call him Dan because I call all of our other Dans Dan. Now I call all the Dans Daniel. So I apologize, Dan Daniels.
So confusing. I'm looking at our pretend script that we never follow. So one thing we do need to talk about, which is good news for the Key 2, and I mentioned earlier how I threw this one on a balcony and it survived. But Mr. Jerry Rig Everything, who infamously, did the Key 1 through his battery test last year, and the screen fell out, which became a thing, which got fixed pretty quick, but was definitely a thing. He took his knife to the Key 2 and bent the phone and everything else, and it passed with flying colors. He couldn't even pop off like the little, I call them bullets, but I think they're called like the BlackBerry droops off the back of the phone. So he was like, yeah, maybe they knew I was going to test this thing this year, and they did not. They didn't cheap out on anything. You can use, and I think you can feel pretty comfortable with it and not cry too quick if you drop it around, push it around. Never encouraged, but it's nice to know it can take a bit of a beating.
I do have one complaint.
What?
Was that really a complaint? I'm just confused. So the convenience key.
Yeah.
Not convenient. I'll tell you why. Mine doesn't do anything, and I don't know why.
Wait, did you program it to do anything?
So I remember
go into settings.
Yeah.
So I know. Okay, so
I
settings.
Hope you're listening, BlackBerry, because he's absolutely right.
Yeah. Wow.
And then you get dumped into the settings, and then you can tap on Add New Shortcut, and then there you go.
There you go. Now I'm seeing. Okay, now I got this screen. That's the screen I've been looking for.
That's the screen that should show up when you long press it and hold it.
Yeah,
discoverability issue, and I was really kind of confused. But
feedback. Okay, well that's we solved the problem. That's good.
I'm happy now because I have never literally used that key.
What are you gonna set it? What are you gonna set it for? The cool one is meeting mode. So if you have like a calendar appointment on your phone, that'll change what it does automatically. So like, let you have a meeting, you could have that convenience key launch the sound recorder. And that's pretty sneaky, right? So you can you're not looking for apps. You can just walk into a meeting, like click, be right on.
So when I'm
so it's not just convenient. It's
I may just go lay Microsoft guy and link it to Cortana.
Cortana's good. I was going to say that's right. You can put Cortana on.
Yeah.
Android. Do that. I have mine set to Google Assistant in similar fashions, but maybe I should try Cortana as well. But problem solved there. What else is on our list? We've got cases are starting to come out. We've got the Key 2. We've got some photos of that's an interesting one. So Key 2 is barely on the market, and now there's a leak of a Key 2 rumored Key 2 Lite. Which to me, Dan already said the phone's light, so I don't know if it's going to be even lighter, or if the light is referring to lighter specs or lighter colors or combinations thereof.
I think it's a combination thereof. From looking at the hands-on, anyways. Because,
lighter price point, perhaps.
Yeah, lighter on your bank account.
Lighter on your bank account. That's what I was reaching for. So we'll see what happens there. I don't know timing though. That it seems interesting to me that they would launch. I mean, back at CES in January, they said they would do 2 phones this year.
Yeah,
and I think they said there'd be 2 keyboard phones. So
yeah,
obviously this is it. But, if the name is 2, it's a variant. And I think from the photo we saw, it looked very Key 2-esque.
Yeah,
it's not some crazy slider or something. Like that.
You know what really caught my eye? Copper. Remember
the colors.
That brass? What did they call it? Brass colored one they released to the Key 1 late in its cycle.
Bronze.
I really like that, but I couldn't justify buying it because I knew they would have something else coming out this year. So show me one in copper, and you might, have 2 key 2s in 1 year.
There you go. That's that's what they should do. Because am I still there, guys?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oops, I didn't touch my mouse and my whole monitor went black for a second. I'm like, it's a good plan, right? So go after the niche of hardcore BlackBerry users instead of selling them one phone every 3 years, as Dan Rubino was saying. We'll just sell the same people 5 phones a year. It's like, here's silver, here's black, here's pink, purple, bronze, copper, red, blah, blah, blah.
If they put out that red one, they've already sold me on the red.
I know, I was going to say, it's red, Jerry wants bronze. I typically like blueberries or white berries. Those will get me every time.
Yeah.
Like that BlackBerry Classic in blue is still the hottest phones.
Well, they were passing around a picture, a leak of and yeah, I would have been all over that.
I'm down with white phones. That sounds racist, but it's not. But
well, this is white and black, the black keys in the black back, and I totally would have got it.
Yeah. With some red accents.
Oh, red on the buttons, like what Google put an orange button on their black and white phone. And I said, why the hell would you do that? Until I saw one, and I'm like,
yeah.
Style. I like it. Bum, 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 bum. I feel like this podcast was so good, we should stop while we're ahead. I think,
it's probably
a convenience game. So many choices.
What have you programmed your keyboard shortcuts for? Or are you not even there yet? That's
a good point. So I have programmed them. I have not figured out how to use that, work it to my workflow.
Okay, so question though. Have you left it so there's a short press and a long press, or did you turn it off so you can do searching by typing and only have the long press?
The first one.
Okay. That's what we didn't talk about. That was my challenge from the last podcast. I've been much of a shortcut user or speed key user on the key 2, and even like key one shortcuts, I didn't even really like get into the habit again. I was just so happy on the keys and everything. I was like, people have seen my home screen layouts. I have them very like fancy. I know where apps are, so I'm like tuned into that. But since the last podcast, I made the effort to actually program shortcuts. While I was traveling, I was in Miami for a couple of weeks. I really got into the habit of like U for Uber, W for WhatsApp, that kind of thing, M for Maps. And it works. And I was even using the speed key because, jumping between WhatsApp to Uber to Maps is actually pretty damn convenient. The thing I couldn't do, though, was train my brain for 52 whatever shortcuts, having short press and long press. So then I found myself just being like, short press for M is Maps, or long press is M for Maps. And then I'm like, well, this is dumb. Why am I just doubling up on my shortcuts? So if I don't accidentally press long or short, I get the same thing. So then what I did is I turned off that setting, and I just have typing goes right into search results, which runs a little slow. That code is not yet optimized. It wasn't
that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
It's a little slow, but it's still not bad for finding things. Like contacts or apps, that kind of thing. And then I just have to memorize one shortcut, which appears to be better for my brain. So I was going to suggest, if you haven't done it yet, maybe take that route. And
that was my feeling on this search, though. I wasn't like immediately. the Microsoft Launcher has its own search too, which I kind of like.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's the whole idea of using 2 thumbs, I guess, to launch it that slows me down. And it's kind of funny because I remember on Trios there was a third-party program, I believe, that you could run, but it was different. It just if you're on the home screen and you held down S, I think it would like wait for a second, then it could launch, like, say, Skype, and that's how that works. So it was just a single key long hold. Of course, it would only really work if you were in like a non-text field.
Right.
Where this gets around that because it's 2 keys, but because it's 2 keys, I find I use it less. So I also wish you didn't have to do shift for a period. Not that you could double tap for period, I know, in a space bar and stuff like that, but or a comma maybe. I feel like some of those just had regular keys, but that's me.
Yeah.
But I was running it for the notification shade, so it pulled.
I did that for a while, but it was just too. It was too of a precise of a key to hit just for.
Yeah, sometimes I would do it accidentally. I went back to just a $. I'm like, it works. It's cool. All right, folks. Well, last thing on my end to share today is just I put up 5 YouTube videos because I did not do like the way my timeline worked with the launch event in New York and everything and traveling. I just didn't get up videos. So CrackBerry Kevin is normally like last year I was months ahead of everybody else. This time I was kind of months behind everybody else. So maybe it evens out. But I threw up some videos with 5 features you should know about. I compared it to a whole bunch of old Blackberries to kind of show you the design evolution that brought us to the Key 2, which is cool. I mentioned the durability test. I did a rant about why physical keyboards still have a place in 2018, because I get really irked when people just kind of dismiss them because they're being stupid and not thinking. They're just kind of repeating. They're not thinking at all. They're just saying stuff that doesn't make sense. And my favorite video was maybe the one about the Key 3, because if you watch that video, I may have leaked what the Key 3 will look like, and it's pretty epic. So I won't tell you how I got one, but it's there, so you can go hunt down that Easter egg of the Key 3. Blaze is laughing. He's like, it looks pretty good.
Yeah.
And actually, I could just say this: I'm holding it right here. It's just gonna be a priv opened up because I think.
Oh, I said it was going to be a slider.
No, it's not going to be a slider.
Oh,
it's going to be
please.
it's just going to where the top of the phone is really thin and light, and the weight is balanced in the keyboard, right? It would be interesting. It would get back to this era of like, hey, not everything's a touchscreen slab. We got sliders, we got other things, we got fancy things, and I don't know.
Because even the priv for a one-hand typer was a little weird at first because it was so tall when you slid it open.
Yeah,
so, that's they know what they're doing. They're smarter than we are.
I mean, with the priv, I always ended up just using it as a touchscreen device. It was pretty unfortunate considering what it was.
Absolutely. I had that exact same experience. It just fell back to just using a touchscreen. I felt like I had to, when you bust out that keyboard, it's like, you better, if I was going to like write a long email, go into that mode, but it was, yeah, it was a lot easier to stay in there. It was such an interesting device. It looked cooler than it was.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And it got hot, very hot, without great battery life.
And its camera was a potato.
The weight reminded me of a Windows Phone.
Okay, and on that note, before Dan busts out his and says, "You want to fight?" Bad mouth in my Windows Phone. Guys, thank you so much, Dan Rubino, Jerry Hildebrand, Blaze, awesome as always, and that was fun. I like having guests on who are way smart. It's a much better show for me and probably for all those listening. So
you hear that, Adam? We're getting rid of you, and you're just going to be replaced.
I guess it's not a bad idea. I mean, I don't like.
I do talk about tech, and I'm not very. I won't spam you with thousands of tweets or Instagram photos. I tightly control the hose on those.
Conscientious of your time. And
I am. And I won't be
in there.
I know, but the last election really burned me on social media.
Got it.
So I stick to Twitter, and it's at GBHIL. Those are my initials, and I'm not writing Hildenbrand any more times than I have to. So it's GBHIL, and we talk about tech. If we do something cool, I want to share it, or if I see something cool, I want to share it. But please don't come on there and say, I only follow you to hear about Android, because I'll say, okay, and then I'll block you.
Oh, just go to Android Central. Maybe that's the best. That's the safe. That's the best
I like
solution.
muting people because then they just think you're ignoring them.
Well, I just don't like to fight with people on social media, and I don't like to watch other people fight. Let's all be nice to each other. It won't hurt.
I've won every single Twitter.
I think that's it. Blaze, you is with a BLA1ZEE.
Yep.
ZE if you're in Canada.
Twitter and Instagram, and I will probably spam your timeline, to be honest. So
there you go. And I am at CrackBerry Kevin. Don't follow me unless you want BlackBerry posts, because they will all be about BlackBerry in one shape form, because that's what people expect of at CrackBerry Kevin.
it's true.
It's cool. I like it. Maybe the occasional Tesla post or a photo of my wife, because she follows me, so I try to not end up divorced when I'm away for months.
And she's better looking than you.
She's far better looking, yeah. All right, and with that, everybody, thanks for listening. That's it. This one's over. I'm gonna do the BlackBerry key to cut and hit the stop button.